Hi, I'm Sheila.
And I'm LC, and we're the Ladder Lab. We're the Ladder Lab ladies, and we're mom-daughter, and we're here to help you get unstuck in your career. And if it's not today that you're getting unstuck, it might be in the future. So you're going to want to watch our videos and to get unstuck in your career and get clarity around direction.
We've developed a framework that I've been using for over 40 years.
And 27 years of my life.
Helping individuals grow in their career, and ultimately it does transfer into your life. But our focus is really around leveling up in your career and really getting unstuck at a certain point when you know it's time to make a change. We've got techniques that we've developed that have been proven time and time again to be successful. And when change is in the air, transition is needed, you need those clear tips on how to move forward. So if you're interested in that, click on the subscribe button below and we will keep you informed of when we are producing something new. Also hit that notification button because that'll let you know we've just put something out there and you can follow along. Sounds like a good plan, huh?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm ready to hit that subscribe button. I don't know about you.
Well, you've been subscribing with me for quite some time. So
yes.
We started working together when she was actually a teenager. She watched me as I was at FedEx and I was coaching people from around the world, and she would hear me on the phone or see me interacting with people as they came to our home.
I was exposed to a lot.
You were exposed. That is true.
Definitely.
Well, the last time we met, we talked about the issue of really identifying your current situation. Mm-hmm. And frankly, once you identify that, it's almost like accepting. Mm-hmm. It's really...
I think it's a choice. It's being honest with yourself that this is where I currently am. If I stay where I currently am, in 3 years, it's not going to get me to where I want to be.
Yes. Looking at the details of your life, as we move through the framework, you'll come back to that list because we're going to deal with that list again. But right now, we're at the fun part.
Yeah.
The next part is fun. However, it is hard. This is the dreaming video where we're going to talk about why it's important to dream and move forward in a trajectory that is really longer than you've probably ever thought about before. I was coaching a senior executive at FedEx. She was living in Europe at the time, and she knew she needed to change jobs, but she did not know exactly what. All she could see was what the next level job was, and that was her trajectory from her vantage point. After going through this process, she began to identify things that she knew she didn't want to remain in her personal life. So that meant her professional life, because she was living in Europe, needed to make a change. Therefore, I asked her to dream, to sit down and list out 15 years in her future. She thought I was crazy. At that point, she was 40 years old. 15 years in my future, I'll be 55. I said, write that down. Now describe your 55-year-old self. Again, let's go back through the task. What house are you living in? Are you in a house? Maybe you're in a condo. Do you have 2 houses? What car are you driving? What people are you hanging with? Who's your network?
Where do you spend your extra time?
What is your leisure time spent? What articles have you written? By now, you should have done some things in your career.
What conversations are you having?
That's a big one. People don't realize how important that is, because if the conversations are not centered around where you want to go, then you're not growing and you're not learning from the others around you. But most people think when I ask them to do this task that this is a waste of time, that they're never going to get there. The problem with that thinking is that if you don't really dream, and in today's world, people don't dream.
And I think since COVID, we really don't dream because we're scared of the future, that things are a little bit different. At least for the young career professionals, I feel like it's very hard for people to see that longer term big dream goal. They think in terms of money, additional things, but it's not that long, big aspirational thing. They don't do that anymore.
Well, do you think they don't do that because everything has been so negative, and it has been what you can't have, what you can't do, what you
We've been put in a box. It's been more defined.
And that's interesting because I've recently participated in some conversations with some investors out of New York, the SEC. I'm on a conference call monthly, and one of the discussions was centered around what future opportunities will there be for jobs, for moving some concepts forward, such as AI. Well, when you look at some facts around what's happened in the U.S., your generation's living in so much negativity.
Well, and so much change. There's so much changing that it feels like if I change, that I could be volatile. Things aren't going to stay the same. So
well, I think too, but this is the interesting point. Of the top 100 companies in the world, 63% of them are in the U.S.
It's crazy.
We live in the U.S. We're in the U.S. Now, someone internationally may be listening to this, but from a U.S. perspective, 63% of those companies are the top 100 companies. That means there's some opportunity out there. And even if they change their strategies, they're going to need to change the type of people they hire and they have on board supporting those strategies. Then you add that top 63% ended up in their revenue making 17% more in revenue in the last year than the other companies in the other countries. So if you're dreaming, you've got a mindset that says there's no opportunity, then your dream's going to be limited. But let's knock down those walls and say, what is the possibility for my life in the future? Well, dream big. So this particular individual dreamed that she was published, that she was a senior officer of a major corporation. She had 2 children and that they were married and she had grandchildren. She had a second home, and her first home would be on the water somewhere. Her second home would be in the mountains somewhere. She was driving and loved to test new cars that were more modern with battery-driven types of cars. She was challenging herself to really take 2 big trips a year to see more of the world that was in an adventure type of travel plan, not just the typical travel. So she began to really dream larger. I will tell you more about the process we used, but that woman right now is head of HR in a major, one of those top 100 companies right now. And when she left her previous job, she felt stuck and she was lower in the managerial ranks. But she was willing to break apart, dream bigger. And once she started to dream bigger, what happened was the barriers began to fall. That she didn't really have those requirements that you place on yourself. When you and I were working together on your last job, you had key items that were deal breakers.
Yes.
I mean, you wanted to make a certain amount of money. You wanted to live in a certain city. You wanted the opportunity for growth. There were some things.
Yep.
Well, you stayed with that and stayed with that until that didn't happen.
Right.
And you reached a point where you said, wait, my dream is really to live in a city with young people.
Yeah.
Okay, then why are you holding this particular characteristic for a job hostage?
Right.
You wouldn't even consider a job that was not in a... Once you dreamed bigger,
right,
you dropped the barriers, then you could see a new level of trajectory for a life.
100%. Absolutely. And I will say one thing that I've been working with this girl who is in accounting, and you've talked about your friend, the individual that you coached who was really dreamt big, that had these big aspirations. And I have a friend who, this individual that I was coaching, she was an accountant and wanted to stay in accounting, and her dream really was to just grow in the ranks within that company. But it's not as big as your person who had this big, massive dream that was maybe outside of that company. I'm going to ask you, is it okay for her to stay within that? Or do you think that you've got to dream past even staying within that company? Like you're supposed to switch companies or something?
There's no rule.
Okay.
Your dream is your dream. I stayed at FedEx because we were starting the company. I remember when the chairman told us that we will change the way the world does business. Keep in mind, we were a pickup and delivery freight company, and literally what we were doing was telling the world, you no longer have to use the post office to ship your small packages. You can bring them to us and we'll get them there overnight. It was a new way of doing business for the U.S. first and then went international. Well, I could see myself growing in that company. Therefore, my dream, which I started when I was 13 years old, and it was to see the world and meet the people of the world. I didn't know when I went into that company and unloaded that airplane that I told you about before, I did not know that that was the company that was going to let me have my big dream. But I didn't let go of my big dream. Did I go interview with other companies at some point? About midpoint in my career, in my 40s, yes, I did, because I was getting some good options. But you know what? I still had that bigger dream. I hadn't seen the whole world yet. And the other piece of this is FedEx was going to give me the trajectory of the dream that I have and a path to get me there. So there was no need. I was growing. I was learning. There was no need for me to make a change. So I would say to your friend, if she sees that where she is, then she doesn't have to make a change.
Right.
But also, in a few years out, if she takes a new look at this and her dream has changed, then maybe at that point she makes a change.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing that says we're stuck in a place ever. In fact, what do we say? Get unstuck. When you start to feel stuck, you get unstuck.
When you're stagnant, you start to really die. When you're not growing, you're not learning, it's really, really devastating to a person.
Right.
No matter what that looks like.
Right.
Whether you're your friend who's going to be going to this large, big role, or, you're just stepping to that next step job.
I have a really interesting story. There was a man who came to one of our big executive dinners. I remember it was in Orlando, and he had a dog. He was sitting at a table. His dog was sitting next to us. The executives came into the room, and we were going to sit at tables to have dinner. We didn't notice anyone. I happened to notice him. I sat down next to him and said, do you mind if we join you at this table? I then said to him, this is a FedEx meeting. Are you with FedEx? And he said, no. I realized very quickly that he was blind. I looked around and there were about 10 other people in the room that we did not recognize. This individual talked to us a bit. And of course, as you can see, I'm pretty chatty, so I began to talk with him. I asked him why I was there. He said to have dinner. Well, that's what we were doing. And then he didn't give me very much information. As the evening went on, all of the other people at our table, who were all from FedEx, ended up not really conversing with him. And because we're cliquish people, we began to click together and
he didn't fit
talk.
with the outside.
He didn't fit our game, And so it came time for the dessert to be served, and there was going to be a toast, recognizing the great year we had had. And when the CEO got up to make this toast, he asked if we had met the people at our table. Of course, we were very proud. Yes, we'd met the individual at our table. And he says, well, I would like for each of them to stand up and tell them a little bit about themselves. I've invited them here. Well, that made them even more important. The CEO's invited them. He stands up and he proceeds to tell us that he's blind, and that he survived the second tower of 9/11. And he's one of our biggest customers. And we never ask him about his shipping. But he tells a story. His story was that every day he went to work for over 40 years. He and his dog would go to work, and he was on the 97th floor of the second tower. And they would go to work, they climbed, took the elevator, and once a week he would take the stairs down, teaching his dog to help him through if there was ever a tragedy. He also had a dream, a big dream, that he someday would help people with handicaps be able to plan and leave situations in a safe manner whenever there was ever a tragedy or any time of crisis situation. He also wanted to train corporations. He really had this dream to grow this bigger. But honestly, if you were talking with him, his 35-year-old self, he said you would have said, he'll never make it. He'll never do that. He goes to work. He's got a very administrative job. It was actually in sales on the phone. And he leaves every day, and he is not the guy that is going to be able to sell big training programs to big corporations. 9/11 happened. He was ready because he had a bigger plan. And he began to work that plan. And he knew there was a day coming. He just believed it because he was ready. And guess what? He was the one, when the first tower was hit, his dog nudged his leg. He moved down and started going down the stairs. He told everyone around them, there's something big that's happening. We need to go downstairs. Follow me. No one followed him. He starts down the stairs because that's part of his training. Don't wait on anyone. Keep going if they don't come. Save your life, because eventually they're going to get into the stair channel, which they did. And all of a sudden, they began to run because the second tower was hit, and they were on the 97th floor. And guess where it was hit? The 95th floor. So they ended up going down the stairs, and they were frantic, and he had a whistle. He blew his whistle and told everyone to stop, get a hold of themselves, and follow him. He was so calm, this team followed him down. He was the leader.
Wow.
Ended up being over 300 people who followed him down. He got to the bottom, and he knew from smell, that's one of the things he teaches, that there was going to be more tragedy and more smoke. He took them across to the subway, down the subway. He shut the door, and he said, we'll be safe here. The building fell. They were safe in the subway. The smoke, he waited because he knew the smoke needed to settle so that they wouldn't be, breathe in that contaminated air. And anyway, he was a hero.
Wow, that's such an inspiration.
But he took the time to dream big and to prepare for what he dreamed his day was coming. He didn't know how it was going to come. He actually had some steps he was taking forward, moving in that direction, which also gave him people in his plan to contact after this and start selling this product. For us at FedEx, that was a lesson too. He was our customer. You never know who you're interacting with that can have effect on your life. Now that is coming in a future video. So for right now, we'll stop with the dreaming, but I hope you get the importance of having a big dream so that we can work a plan that gets you from your current situation to your dream situation in an organized manner.
And maybe you don't feel stuck, that maybe you're happy in your current situation, but it sounds like it's really important to dream even if you're in an okay situation. It's good to continue knowing where you're going in 15 years.
Absolutely. I mean, even me right now, someone who has retired, but not really. I love coaching people. Even now, I have a big dream of what is next.
Right.
As I have aged. I'm not dead.
No.
So
on to big
there's
things.
so much to do. And honestly, here's the honest truth. I really care about you guys. I really care about your generation because
Care about the next generation.
Exactly. If we don't help you see what the possibilities are for what is next and help you prepare for those. You're the people that are going to be stepping into these roles and making our world a better place.
Yes.
And I love it. It makes my heart so happy to see the growth in individuals and feel the success and feel you're moving forward. I think we get stuck because of our belief system. In fact, I know we do. Our belief system about ourselves, our belief system about the world around us, and our belief system about the possibilities of the future.
We have to break free from those chains.
We got to break free.
And that leads to the next one.
Yes.
So we'll be talking about evaporating the ego, and that is going to be very, very hard. Very hard, don't you think?
Yes, that's the one you've got to let go of some things.
So it's been fun. Dreaming is fun, but when you get to this point, it's going to be a little bit harder. So make sure you've written these things down and check out the link in the description. We're going to be talking about evaporating that ego next. So get ready.
Let's recap a little bit. You've had the opportunity to accept the fact that you need change. You've listed out your current state. That includes everything from where you live, who you socialize with, what kind of job you're performing, what are the tasks in the jobs. You've listed all that out. You're exhausted from listing it out. Now let's go over and do a comparison with your 15-year dream plan. Listing a comparison. Where do you live there? As we went through all of that detail, you now have the capability of looking at what your future could look like. And that's exciting. So I think this dream process is important. It may take you a while to do it, but be sure to list out those things that are important to you and step up a bit. What awards have you won? Think about people who are in positions that are higher level than you. What are they doing? List out where you could be in their shoes in the future. I think dreaming in today's world is so important, and it will give you a direction for where we're going to go next.
And we're going to be talking about evaporating the ego in the next video. So click the link in the description below. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Stick around. We're going to be going through some tough things next. So get ready, get your journal out, and we'll see you in the next video.